Hey guys, welcome back to the garage. So it's been a week since the last video. I've been fighting a cold and I kind of sound like James Earl Jones talking into a coffee cup. Maybe just a little bit, maybe not quite so much. Anyways, this week I finally got the header fixed and let me tell you, it was a little bit of a fight. Hopefully it works this time. So I belt sanded it one more time. I put a new belt on the sander and a new platen and kind of flattened it out again really good, and it was perfect. And then when the header cools down, and it's not really that hot, but when it cools down or it normalizes, the flange warps again. So that just tells me that it's under a lot of tension like I expected. So what I did, and some of you guys had mentioned it, I cut the header flange in between the first header tube and the last header tube. And let me tell you, it bolts up a lot easier and the collector lines up. So maybe, just maybe, the header gaskets will stay in at this time, or the header sealer, or whatever you want to call it. So it's time to get loaded up. Let's head to the track. We're going to set some new passes. We're going to do some best 60 foots. We're going to have a good time. We'll see you there.
Texas Motorplex. Beautiful day. Probably about 65 to 70 degrees. It's like January 8th or something like that. Yeah, it's going to be a good day.
Okay, so the first pass was slow, if you will. It didn't run well. It didn't feel like it had a lot of power. It didn't feel like it had felt in the past, and so on and so forth. And it was just wasn't all there. We didn't find out until later in the day what had happened to it. But if you watch that last clip a little more closely than normal, you'll see a little puff of smoke as it goes down the track. And that was the dipstick blowing out and a very fine mist of oil spraying on the headers and whatnot. I could see it plain as day, and I knew what it was immediately, and I really wasn't too concerned about it, so I just wrote it out. What you can't see in the video from that angle, and it's really kind of weird, the car went 846 at 172 miles an hour. So those two things don't line up, and I'll explain why. When I bumped in, apparently I bumped in really far, but I didn't turn out either of the lights. And so what happened was, when I let go of the brake pedal, the car settled just a little bit, and it did it at the exact moment that the tree was activated. So that red lit me. I went 360 red, I think. And it also started the timer, so I sat still for probably 0.4 of a second. So you can do the math, and the mile per hour will tell you what the car ran on the next pass. Okay, Brian also filmed some of our friends' cars that were there at this track rental. A couple of guys we met from Jersey in the copper-colored Nova, the Meisner brothers. Pretty nice car, super fast car. They are in the midst of working it out. Get a look at this thing. ProCharge small block, runs really good. Well, let's take a look at it. Okay, so we're going into the second pass now, and we've been looking at the data logs. We updated the firmware in the computer, so we have some outstanding things that needed to be addressed, if you will. The methanol table wasn't really quite right, and the week before I had some fluctuating pressure in the methanol, and I didn't really even give it a second thought because I was convinced that the problem was actually a cheap Chinese pressure transducer. So I just changed the pressure transducer out, and we went to the track today, or this day, and found out that it's still doing the same thing. So Chris and I started investigating, trying to find out what was going on, and we later found out that the methanol pump has quit. It sounds like it works, and it shows a little bit of pressure like it works, but as soon as the injectors fire, that pressure just drops, and it cycles like this through the run, and the highest points it hits is 18 or 19 pounds of pressure or something like that. Not good at all. So I found out just how important the methanol was to this car and the way it's set up. It slowed it down 0.2 of a second and 3 miles an hour in the 8th mile. So big difference. Anyways, check out the second pass. One other thing to note about the second and third pass is that, and I cut a lot of the junk out before I staged the car, but you'll see the car is struggling to run after the burnout, and it's only on the second and the third pass. It's struggling to run, it won't run right, and nothing has changed. So when I get back to the pits, I start looking at the data log, and the map sensor, after the burnout, the map sensor just drops to 0. And it sits at 0, and it sits at 0, and it doesn't come back until I stage the car, and it's fine all the way down the track and all the way back down the pits. It drives perfect. Next pass I come up, do the burnout, it's fine, and then it starts messing up again. Map sensor drops to 0, and it starts running like crap again. Makes the pass, no problem. I don't get it. Can't catch a break. So it looks like the map sensor is left the building, and it's time to get a new one. Okay guys, so that's the end of the video. We got 3 passes yesterday. We could have made a couple more, but with the map sensor acting up and the methanol pump not working correctly, it was probably best that we left while the car still ran. The methanol, it leaned it out a little bit when the methanol quit, but not to the point where it was going to hurt it, even if it quit completely. So that's definitely good. Just FYI, the methanol, the way it was set up in this, knocked out about 77 degrees of air charge temperature, which is probably the main reason why it didn't run as good as it normally does, because the air is just so hot. I think it went in at like 180 degrees on this all three passes actually. And normally we see barely 100 degrees. So definitely a huge difference. Gonna change to a different kind of pump, just in case the one that I had on there was not methanol compatible. And we'll go out and try it again. The header gasket kind of held up. It's definitely better, but not good. So what I think I'm going to do there is I'm going to machine some thin copper or thin aluminum to use for gaskets. I'll anneal it with a torch and put it on there and see if that helps things out a little bit, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So having said that, that is the end of the video, guys. As usual, thanks for stopping by. Be sure to give it a thumbs up and stick around for the next installment of the Bad News Bears at the Track, and hopefully we'll have some better luck. But that's it. Thanks, guys.